There's a product sitting in almost every British fridge right now. It's been there for decades. Your parents bought it, your grandparents trusted it, and right now, without knowing it, you're feeding it to your children. It's the humble British sausage. And what's inside it would make you put it down and never pick it up again. We're not talking about the fact that they use trimmings instead of prime cuts. That's not the scandal. The scandal is what happens after the trimming. What gets added, what gets hidden. What the label doesn't legally have to tell you. Because in the UK right now, sausage manufacturers are exploiting every loophole in food law to sell you something that looks like meat, tastes engineered to be addictive, and is connected by a growing body of evidence to some of the most serious health conditions facing British families. And the brands doing this aren't obscure. They're the ones with the Union Jacks on the packaging, the ones running ads about British farmers and countryside mornings, the ones you've trusted your entire life. That trust is the product. Today, we're exposing 7 of the worst offenders, and by the end, you will never look at a sausage aisle the same way again. Before we name the brands, you need to understand the machine that built them. British sausages are legally permitted to contain as little as 32% pork and still be sold as a pork sausage. Read that again, 32%. The rest, the other 68%, can be water, rusk, fat, flavourings, preservatives, and a list of additives so long that manufacturers are permitted to group them under the blanket term flavourings without specifying a single compound. The UK Food Standards Agency permits this. It's not an accident, it's a framework, and the brands on this list have mastered it. The Food Standards Agency's own compositional regulations state that pork sausages sold in Great Britain must contain a minimum of 42% meat, but within that, meat is defined to include mechanically separated meat, fat, and connective tissue. The 32% figure refers specifically to lean meat content. That's the actual muscle, the thing you thought you were paying for. Most people have no idea. The sausage on your grill, the one with the British pork banner on the packet, may contain less actual lean meat than a tin of cheap cat food contains protein. The rest is filler, water-binding agents, and chemical flavour systems designed in a laboratory to make you want another one. And now, let's talk about who's selling it. 1. Wool's Pork Sausages. Wool's. The name alone is comfort. It's seaside trips and Sunday mornings. It's a brand so embedded in British culture that criticising it feels like criticising the country itself. That's exactly what they're counting on. Wool's thick pork sausages contain pork at just 42%, the legal minimum to use the word pork sausage. The remainder is a constructed food system: pork fat, water, rusk made from wheat flour, potato starch, salt, dextrose, and a flavouring blend that the packaging does not fully itemize. Let's talk about the dextrose. Dextrose is a simple sugar derived from cornstarch. In processed meat, it's used not for sweetness, you won't taste it, but as a microbial feeding agent during curing and as a moisture retention accelerant. Its presence in sausages is a signal this product has been engineered for shelf stability, not for nutrition. Then there's the sodium. A serving of Wool's sausages can deliver over 1.5 grams of salt. That's 25% of an adult's recommended daily intake in 2 sausages. The NHS has warned repeatedly that processed meat is one of the primary contributors to excessive sodium intake in UK diets, and that high sodium consumption is directly linked to hypertension and elevated cardiovascular risk. But the deeper betrayal isn't chemical, it's cultural. Wool's was acquired by Kerry Group, an Irish multinational food corporation, in 1994. The brand that you associate with British butchers, with corner shops, with post-war British resilience, is a corporate product managed from a global supply chain. The nostalgic imagery on the packaging, the red and gold, the serif font, the implied heritage is a marketing construct. What's inside has been reformulated multiple times since your parents bought it, each time optimizing for cost reduction rather than nutritional quality. You're not buying your grandmother's sausages. You're buying a cost-engineered replica wrapped in her memory. 2. Richmond sausages. Richmond is the best-selling sausage brand in the United Kingdom. Full stop. More Richmond sausages are sold each week than any other brand, which means what we're about to tell you affects more British households than any other product on this list. Richmond thick pork sausages, the ones in the cheerful blue packet, the ones every supermarket in the country stocks. They contain 51% pork, slightly above minimum. But here's what the headline figure conceals. That 51% pork figure includes mechanically separated pork, a product created by forcing carcass remnants through a sieve under high pressure, producing a paste that legally qualifies as meat. The Food Safety and Inspection Service categorizes mechanically separated meat as a distinct product from standard ground meat. In the US, it cannot be labelled as meat at all. In the UK, it counts toward your pork content percentage. Then look at the additives. Richmond sausages contain sodium metabisulfite, E223, a preservative used to extend shelf life and maintain colour. The European Food Safety Authority has reviewed sulfite preservatives and noted that they can trigger asthmatic reactions in sensitive individuals. The UK's Committee on Toxicity has flagged that sulfite intake across the population, particularly in children, warrants continued monitoring. Richmond sausages are heavily marketed toward families. They are specifically positioned as a product for children's meals. The label doesn't tell you that. Richmond also contains pork collagen, listed as pork rind, a protein extracted from skin and connective tissue that is nutritionally inferior to muscle protein, absorbs poorly in the digestive system, and serves primarily as a texture and binding agent. It bulks the sausage, it makes it feel meatier than it is, and it counts toward the protein figures on the nutritional label. The marketing says, made with British pork. The ingredient list tells a different story. And the company behind Richmond Kerry Foods is the same Kerry group that owns Walls, two of Britain's most beloved sausage brands, one multinational corporation, one cost structure, one shared interest in keeping you buying without asking questions. 3. Tesco Everyday Value Sausages. Let's talk about the bottom of the market, because that's where the real danger lives. Tesco Everyday Value pork sausages are sold to families watching their budgets. They're sold to single parents, to students, to pensioners on fixed incomes who need protein and can't always afford the premium shelf. Tesco knows this. And what they've put in this product is an insult to every one of those customers. These sausages contain 32% pork, the legal floor. The absolute minimum required to call them pork sausages at all. The rest is water listed as the second ingredient, followed by pork fat, rusk, starch, salt, and a preservative system, including E250, sodium nitrite. Sodium nitrite is where the conversation becomes serious. The World Health Organization's International Agency for Research on Cancer classified processed meat, including products preserved with nitrites, as a Group 1 carcinogen in 2015. Not possibly carcinogenic, not probably. Group 1, the evidence was considered sufficient to conclude that processed meat causes colorectal cancer in humans. The same classification as tobacco, the same classification as asbestos. The mechanism is understood. When sodium nitrite reacts with amines present in meat protein during high-temperature cooking, such as grilling or frying, it produces nitrosamines. Several nitrosamines are potent carcinogens. The UK government's own scientific advisors have acknowledged this pathway and recommended that nitrite use in processed meat should be reviewed and progressively reduced. That review has been ongoing for years. Meanwhile, Tesco's cheapest sausages still list E250 as an ingredient. The people who cannot afford premium sausages are being sold a product preserved with a compound linked to cancer. They don't know what's in it. The label doesn't explain what E numbers mean, and no one in the supply chain is losing sleep over it. That's not an oversight. That's a choice. 4. Asda Smart Price Sausages. Asda's Smart Price range exists for one reason: to sell volume at the lowest possible cost per unit. That logic is not hidden. What is hidden is what that logic has done to the product inside the packet. Asda Smart Price pork sausages sit at the same 32% pork threshold as Tesco's bottom range. The texture is uniform in a way that real meat never is. That uniformity is the first warning sign. It means the protein matrix has been heavily processed. Water has been mechanically bound into the structure using carrageenan or modified starch, and the flavor profile has been constructed chemically rather than developed through quality meat selection. Carrageenan deserves your attention. It's a thickening agent derived from red seaweed, widely used in processed meat to bind water and give a premium mouthfeel. The National Institutes of Health in the United States has published research raising concerns that food-grade carrageenan may promote intestinal inflammation in susceptible individuals. The European Union's EFSA reviewed carrageenan, and while it maintained approval for most food applications, it restricted its use in infant formula, citing unresolved safety questions. The compound remains in adult processed meat products across the UK, with no mandatory disclosure obligation beyond the ingredients list where it hides under thickener or its E number designation E407. Asda's Smart Price sausages are heavily promoted during back-to-school periods. They appear in Asda's family meal planning content. They are being fed to children by families who trust the Asda name and cannot interrogate an ingredient list they were never taught to read. 5. Heck Chicken Italia Sausages. Now let's talk about the premium deception. Heck has built its entire brand identity on being the antidote to the brands we've already discussed. The packaging is clean, the typography is modern. The brand messaging explicitly distances itself from industrial processed meat. Heck positions itself as craft, transparent, better. And that positioning is exactly why this entry matters most. Heck Chicken Italia sausages are sold as a healthier alternative. They are marketed toward health-conscious consumers, gym-goers, people who read ingredient lists and feel good about what they find. The brand's communications actively imply that its products are free from the industrial practices common to mainstream sausage manufacturers. But look at the ingredient list of the Chicken Italia variant. After chicken breast, yes, it does lead with chicken breast you find pork casing, rice flour, tomatoes, sun-dried tomatoes, basil, and then dextrose, salt at 1, 6g per 100g, and a preservative system. More importantly, the chicken content is 78% genuinely higher than the mainstream brands. But the sausages derive a significant portion of their appealing flavor profile from salt and dextrose additions that push the sodium content to levels comparable with far cheaper products. That's not the core issue, though. The core issue is the premium pricing model. Heck sausages retail for roughly 3 to 4 times the price of Asda Smart Price. They are sold to consumers who have been persuaded that the premium reflects ingredient quality and ethical production. What the premium actually reflects is a branding investment, the fonts, the Instagram content, the carefully worded no junk messaging that costs money and gets loaded back into the retail price. Heck sausages are a better product than the bottom tier options, but they are not a proportionally better product. The gap between what you pay and what you receive in nutritional and ingredient quality is significant. And the brand's studied presentation as a transparency-forward company makes that gap a form of deception. Being less bad is not the same as being good. And charging a premium for less bad while implying you're good, that's a business model built on the same consumer confusion that the industrial brands depend on. 6. Lincolnshire sausage from Co-op own brand. Here's where heritage becomes a weapon. Lincolnshire sausages are a protected food name in the UK. Under geographic indication rules, a sausage labelled Lincolnshire must be produced in Lincolnshire and must conform to a traditional recipe specification, including sage as a primary herb. This designation was designed to protect regional food traditions and give consumers confidence in authenticity. Co-op's own brand, Lincolnshire sausages, technically comply with the protected name requirements. They are made in Lincolnshire, they contain sage. But compliance with a protected food name designation does not mean what consumers think it means. The Co-op Lincolnshire sausages contain 64% pork, a respectable figure. But they also contain pork fat listed separately as a primary ingredient, water as the third ingredient, wheat, rusk, sage, white pepper, salt at 1, 8g per 100g, and E250 sodium nitrite as a preservative. The traditional recipe that the Lincolnshire name evokes did not include nitrite preservation. It included natural curing timescales, cold storage, and higher meat density that created its own preservation environment. The modern industrial version of a protected traditional product contains a preservative that the original version never required. And consumers buying Co-op Lincolnshire sausages believe they're buying something that connects them to a genuine food tradition. That belief is being exploited. The Lincolnshire designation provides a halo of authenticity that the actual product does not fully deserve, and the supermarket knows it. Protected food names were designed to protect you. In the hands of supermarket own brand development, they've become a trust mark applied to products that would horrify the regional producers who fought for that protection in the first place. 7. Tesco finest sausages. We've saved the most sophisticated betrayal for last. Because the most dangerous lie isn't the cheap lie, it's the expensive one, the one dressed in premium packaging with claims of outdoor bred pork and no artificial flavours and butcher's recipe. The lie that costs you £4 for 6 sausages and makes you feel like you've made the responsible choice. Tesco finest Cumberland sausages. Their premium tier. Their proof that they can do better. And they do better incrementally. The pork content climbs to 82%. The ingredient list shortens. The rusk is replaced with rice flour in some variants. These are genuine improvements on the budget range. But let's read the label more carefully. No artificial flavours does not mean no flavourings. It means no synthetic flavour compounds classified as artificial under UK food law. Natural flavourings chemically extracted from natural sources, but processed in ways that the original source would be unrecognisable, are permitted under the no artificial claim. The Food Standards Agency itself has noted that the term natural flavouring can be applied to compounds that undergo significant chemical processing. Outdoor bred does not mean free range. It means the pigs were born outdoors and then moved indoors for the majority of their lives. The British Veterinary Association and animal welfare organisations have consistently flagged that outdoor bred is a confusing claim that consumers persistently misread as indicating high welfare standards throughout the past. Animals' life. It does not. And the premium price? The Tesco Finest range is not produced at a different facility from the standard range. It moves through the same industrial supply chain. The cost difference between producing a budget sausage and a Finest sausage is a fraction of the retail price gap. The majority of that premium is captured as margin by Tesco. You thought you were paying for better. You were paying for better marketing. The most expensive sausage in the supermarket is still a processed product preserved with sodium nitrite, priced on the assumption that you will not read far enough down the label to question it. The closing what you do now. So where does this leave you? It leaves you with a choice that every single one of these brands has worked very hard to make invisible. You can buy from independent butchers who are legally required to disclose full recipe content on request and who in the majority of cases produce sausages with 75–90% lean meat, no mechanically separated content, and preservative systems that rely on traditional curing rather than nitrite chemistry. They cost more, not 3 times more, not the heck premium. A genuine, justifiable premium that reflects actual ingredient quality and reflects back to a human being who made something properly. You can read E numbers. E250 is sodium nitrite. E223 is sodium metabisulfite. E407 is carrageenan. These are not just codes. They are decisions that someone made when formulating a product. Decisions weighted entirely toward shelf life, cost, and visual appeal. Not your health, not your children's health. You can ask supermarkets using their own feedback systems, using social media, using the very platforms that their marketing departments monitor obsessively, why their cheapest products still rely on preservative chemistry flagged by the WHO. Because here's what the sausage industry counts on above everything else. Your assumption that the government is watching, that the regulations are protective, and that if something genuinely dangerous were in the food supply, someone official would have stopped it. The Food Standards Agency permits sodium nitrite in processed meat while acknowledging the cancer research. The government's own advisors have recommended reducing nitrite use, and that recommendation has sat in policy documents for years without binding action. The industry lobbied, the timelines extended, the sausages kept selling. This is the system. It was built deliberately. It benefits people who are not you. The label doesn't tell you that. The packaging doesn't tell you that. The nostalgic branding doesn't tell you that. But now you know. And knowing is how it starts to change. If every person who watches this video walked into their next supermarket trip and turned one packet over, just one, and read what's actually in it, that collective act of attention would register. Supermarkets are terrified of informed consumers. That's why they've spent decades ensuring you're not one. Push this video to people who deserve to know what they're buying. Not because we asked you to. Because food transparency is not a content preference. It's a right. And the next time you see a Union Jack on a sausage packet and feel that reflex of trust, remember what's underneath it. That reflex is the product.